They thought you would never notice. Not at first. Because people like that never attack openly. They move through shadows, through whispers, through carefully planted doubt, through fake concern, through smiling faces hiding poisoned intentions. And for a while it hurt. You felt the strange resistance building around your life. The sudden distance from people you trusted. Opportunities shifting without explanation. Conversations changing tone the moment you entered the room. You knew something was happening, even when nobody would say it out loud. Because your spirit could feel the warfare before your eyes could confirm it. They spent months orchestrating your ruin. They whispered your name, laid the traps, and waited for you to fall. But they forgot one ancient, unbreakable universal law. What you send against the anointed always returns to the sender. Right now, they are desperately trying to climb out of the very pit they dug for you. That was their biggest mistake. They assumed your silence meant weakness. They assumed your patience meant blindness. They assumed your calm spirit meant they had already defeated you. But what they never understood is this. Chosen ones are rarely protected in obvious ways. The shield around you is invisible, quiet, divine. And while they were obsessively monitoring your downfall, something else was happening behind the scenes. The energy they launched toward you could not attach itself to your spirit. So now the current has reversed. The karmic boomerang has been released. And suddenly the same confusion they tried to place on your path is appearing inside their own minds. The same instability they wished on your future is beginning to consume their own lives. Because when a trap cannot hold its intended target, it snaps back on the one who built it. Let that sink in. This is not revenge. This is divine balance correcting itself. And deep down they know it. At the beginning, they were confident, dangerously confident. Because from their perspective, everything seemed to be working. Every rumor they spread appeared to create distance around you. Every subtle manipulation looked successful. Every attempt to isolate you gave them another false sense of power. They watched people question your character. They watched doors temporarily close. They watched confusion surround your name. And secretly, they celebrated it. Not openly, of course. People driven by manipulation rarely expose themselves too early. They hide behind masks of innocence while feeding off destruction behind the scenes. They wanted plausible deniability. They wanted to wound you while still appearing righteous to everyone else. That duplicity became their addiction. The more they thought they were getting away with it, the bolder they became. They started believing they controlled the narrative. They believed they could distort reality long enough to make others doubt your spirit. They believed they could emotionally exhaust you into surrender. They believed pressure, isolation, and psychological warfare would slowly force you to break yourself. And what gave them the most satisfaction was your silence. Because toxic people misinterpret restraint as defeat. When you refused to argue, they thought you had no defense. When you walked away from conflict, they assumed you were weak. When you stopped explaining yourself, they interpreted your peace as surrender. But they never realized your silence was not fear. It was observation. You were watching the masks slip in real time. You were noticing inconsistencies they thought nobody could see. You were feeling the strange envy hidden beneath fake smiles. You were sensing the energetic obsession they carried toward your existence. Because people who are truly at peace do not dedicate their lives to destroying someone else. Read that again. Healthy souls do not wake up strategizing sabotage. Only internally collapsing people become consumed with controlling another person's destiny. And that is why they grew reckless. Arrogance always blinds hidden enemies. The moment they thought they had successfully weakened you, they stopped moving carefully. Their gossip became more obvious. Their resentment became harder to conceal. Their emotional dependence on your downfall became visible. That's when the trap truly began forming around them. Because they underestimated one critical truth about chosen ones. Pressure reveals your strength instead of destroying it. Every attack forced you deeper into discernment. Every betrayal sharpened your intuition. Every attempt to isolate you pushed you closer to divine protection. Meanwhile, they were becoming spiritually exposed. The hatred they projected outward was slowly poisoning their own inner world. Their obsession with monitoring you started consuming their peace. Their need for control became paranoia. Their lies required more lies to maintain. And beneath all their arrogance, fear quietly began growing. Because despite everything they tried, you were still standing, still breathing, still moving forward, still protected. That confused them more than anything. They could not understand why the weight they placed on your shoulders was not crushing you the way they imagined. They expected emotional collapse. They expected retaliation. They expected desperation. Instead, your composure became the mirror exposing their chaos. And nothing terrifies manipulators more than a person they cannot emotionally control. That was the moment the energy shifted. The moment they realized something unseen was protecting you. The moment confidence turned into anxiety. Because deep down, they started sensing the horrifying possibility that every malicious thing they released into the universe was no longer traveling toward you. It was preparing to return home. What they never understood is that the attacks were being blocked long before you even became aware of them. That is the part hidden enemies fail to comprehend when dealing with a chosen one. They assume protection must always look dramatic. They expect visible intervention, immediate justice, instant exposure. But divine protection often works silently, invisibly, quietly rearranging outcomes behind the scenes while your enemies mistake delay for victory. There were conversations about you that never reached the ears they were intended for. There were opportunities they tried to sabotage that somehow reopened later in your favor. There were lies designed to stain your reputation permanently. Yet people eventually began sensing something was off about the storytellers themselves. Because false energy cannot permanently attach itself to a spirit operating in truth. That was the invisible shield surrounding you the entire time. Not that you avoided pain. Not that betrayal did not wound you. Not that confusion did not exhaust you emotionally. You still had nights where the weight felt unbearable. You still questioned why certain people suddenly changed toward you. You still felt isolated while others smiled in your face, pretending nothing was wrong. But despite all of that, they still could not destroy your core. That frustrated them more than any argument ever could. Because manipulators depend on emotional reactions to confirm their power. They feed off visible breakdowns. They crave evidence that their attacks penetrated your spirit. But every time you chose silence instead of chaos, every time you kept rebuilding instead of collapsing, every time you moved forward without becoming consumed by hatred, the shield around you strengthened. And here is what they never realized. Your peace was fighting battles they could not see. While they were obsessing over controlling appearances, something greater was protecting your direction. Certain delays were actually divine reroutes. Certain endings were hidden rescues. Certain betrayals exposed people who would have harmed you even more if they had stayed close. What looked like loss was often protection wearing a painful disguise. Let that sink in. Because many chosen ones spend too much time grieving doors that were closed specifically to save them. Meanwhile, the people plotting against you mistook temporary discomfort for permanent defeat. They celebrated too early. They thought because they created turbulence around your life, they had succeeded in removing your destiny. But destiny protected by divine alignment cannot be canceled by gossip, envy, or manipulation. And slowly, they began noticing something terrifying. No matter how much negativity they launched toward you, your spirit kept recovering. Your light kept returning. Your opportunities kept rebuilding. Your intuition kept growing sharper. That is when fear entered their spirit. Because deep down, they started realizing they were not fighting an unprotected person. They were fighting against a force they could neither predict nor overpower. Every hidden attack that failed to destroy you became evidence that something larger was intervening on your behalf. And once they understood that, panic quietly replaced arrogance. Because if the shield around you was real, then there was only one possible outcome left for the energy they sent against you. It had nowhere to go except back to them. This is the part nobody warns them about. Negative energy always demands a destination. Hatred needs somewhere to attach itself. Manipulation needs a target to consume. Lies need a host willing to carry their poison forward. And when all of that energy is sent towards someone spiritually protected, something unexpected happens. The attack loses its place to land. That is the mechanism of the reversal. Because energy rejected by truth cannot disappear. It returns to its source. And when it comes back carrying the weight of intention behind it, the impact becomes even heavier than before. That is why people who dedicate themselves to sabotaging others eventually begin collapsing under forces they cannot explain. The universe mirrors what they released. The chaos they wished on you begins entering their own homes. The confusion they tried to create around your name starts infecting their own minds. The instability they secretly prayed would destroy your future suddenly starts appearing inside their relationships, finances, emotions, and sense of peace. Not because you cursed them, not because you chased revenge, but because destructive energy always circles back to its creator when it cannot penetrate its intended victim. That is the law they underestimated. They thought secrecy would protect them from consequences. They believed hidden sabotage somehow escaped spiritual accountability. They assumed if they smiled publicly while attacking privately, the universe would not recognize the contradiction living inside them. But intention carries frequency, and no mask can hide energy forever. That is why the reversal often begins subtly. First comes emotional unrest, sleepless nights, irritation without explanation, sudden paranoia. Then the fractures begin spreading outward. Alliances become unstable. Trust begins dissolving. Miscommunication increases. People around them start noticing inconsistencies they once ignored. Because once the energy reverses, the mask starts slipping fast. The very manipulation tactics they used against you begin turning against each other. Gossip circles back into betrayal. Control turns into desperation. Obsession turns into emotional starvation. And the same fear they tried planting inside your spirit slowly becomes the atmosphere surrounding their own lives. Here's what they never realized. When you refused revenge, you interrupted the cycle they depended on. They wanted emotional warfare. They wanted retaliation. They wanted you distracted by rage, so the energy exchange could remain connected to you. But your restraint severed the attachment point. Your silence stopped feeding the conflict. Your detachment forced the energy to return to the only remaining owner left, them. That was their biggest mistake. Because a chosen one who stays spiritually grounded becomes untouchable in ways manipulators cannot comprehend. The attacks begin collapsing inward. The schemes become self-destructive. The lies mutate into exposure. And suddenly the people who once looked powerful begin unraveling under the weight of their own intentions. Now they feel it. Even if they cannot explain it logically, they feel the atmosphere changing around them. They feel the loss of control. They feel the pressure building. They feel the consequences approaching through unexpected directions. Because the pit they dug for you has become the prison they now struggle to escape. And deep down they know exactly why. Right now, their world is not as stable as it appears from the outside. That carefully constructed image they worked so hard to maintain is beginning to crack under pressure. And the reason is simple. People can fake appearances for only so long before internal chaos starts leaking into external reality. The reversal has already started. Some of them are experiencing sudden losses they never anticipated. Financial strain, broken partnerships, friendships collapsing without warning, opportunities disappearing at the exact moment they thought they had finally gained control, plans falling apart for reasons they cannot fully explain. And what terrifies them most is how fast it is happening. Because karma rarely announces its arrival. It simply begins removing stability piece by piece until the person is forced to confront the energy they have been carrying inside themselves all along. Now the same paranoia they once projected onto you is consuming them internally. They are questioning who they can trust. They are overanalyzing conversations. They are sensing distance from people they once controlled easily. Some are even becoming isolated by the exact behaviors they used against others. That is divine balance. The manipulation they normalized has poisoned their ability to experience genuine peace. Every relationship now feels uncertain because deception became their native language. Every silence feels threatening because they know how much damage can happen behind closed doors. Every shift in energy feels dangerous because deep down, they remember the chaos they secretly created for others. And here is the most unsettling part for them. Your life did not collapse the way they expected. You kept rebuilding. You kept healing. You kept evolving. While they were obsessing over your downfall, you were unknowingly outgrowing the entire environment that once tried to contain you. And now your calm presence alone becomes a painful reminder that their attacks failed. That failure is haunting them. Because people who depend on controlling others cannot emotionally survive being unable to control the outcome. They replay old situations in their minds. They wonder why their manipulation stopped working. They monitor from a distance, hoping to see signs of weakness, but instead they see resilience, peace, detachment, growth, and your silence unsettles them more than words ever could, because silence leaves people alone with their conscience. Read that again. The moment you stopped fighting them emotionally, they lost the distraction protecting them from themselves. Now they must sit with the weight of their own intentions. Now they must feel the instability they created. Now they must confront the emptiness hidden beneath the masks they wore for so long. Some are becoming spiritually exhausted. Others are emotionally unraveling. Some are desperately trying to repair damaged connections, while secretly terrified more exposure is coming. And beneath all their attempts to appear composed is one unbearable realization. The trap did not destroy you. It exposed them. That is the chaos surrounding their lives right now. Not random suffering. Not meaningless bad luck. But the natural collapse that happens when manipulation, envy, and hidden malice can no longer hide behind temporary success. And while they struggle to understand why everything feels like it is turning against them, your spirit is finally beginning to breathe again. Because the storm they created was never meant to become your permanent home. It was only revealing who could not survive in the presence of your light. One of the hardest things you were asked to do was nothing. Not because you lacked evidence. Not because you could not expose them. Not because you were too weak to defend yourself. But because your spirit understood something deeper. Revenge would have tied your energy to the very chaos trying to destroy you. That restraint protected you more than you realize. There were moments you wanted to speak. Moments you wanted to reveal every lie, every betrayal, every hidden conversation that took place behind your back. You wanted people to finally see the truth. You wanted validation, justice, closure. But every time you resisted the urge to retaliate, you kept your hands spiritually clean. And that mattered. Because once you descend into the same manipulation, the energetic line between attacker and victim begins to blur. That is exactly what they wanted. They wanted to provoke you into becoming reactive, angry, consumed. They wanted your spirit pulled into emotional warfare so they could point at your response instead of their behavior. But you denied them that satisfaction. Your silence became discipline. Your distance became protection. Your emotional control became victory. That does not mean the pain was easy. There were nights you replayed everything in your head, trying to understand how people could smile in your face while secretly working against you. There were moments your soul grew tired from carrying betrayal without explanation. There were times you questioned whether staying calm was allowing them to win. But here is what you could not yet see. While you were staying still, the universe was building the case for you. Every hidden intention was being recorded. Every manipulative action was creating consequences. Every false mask was slowly weakening under the pressure of truth. And because you refused revenge, nobody could honestly say you caused the collapse now unfolding in their lives. They created it themselves. That is why restraint was necessary. Not weakness, wisdom. Because chosen ones are not meant to spend their lives chasing vengeance. Your purpose was never to become consumed by proving yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Your purpose was to keep moving forward while divine balance handled what your hands were never meant to carry. And now the difference is undeniable. You may still have scars from what happened, but your spirit remains intact. Meanwhile, many of the people who tried to destroy your peace are now drowning in the emotional instability they once projected outward. That is the power of staying aligned instead of retaliating. You allowed truth to defend you naturally. You allowed karma to move without interference. And most importantly, you refused to let bitterness transform you into the very thing that wounded you. That restraint changed everything. So now, chosen one, there is only one thing left for you to do. Keep moving forward. Do not stand at the edge of their collapse, trying to understand every detail. Do not become distracted watching karma unfold. Do not return to the chaos simply because the people who betrayed you are finally experiencing the consequences of their own energy. Leave the wreckage behind, because your life was never meant to revolve around surviving hidden enemies. It was meant to evolve beyond them. And that is exactly what is happening now. The attacks did not destroy your spirit. The gossip did not erase your destiny. The sabotage did not cancel your purpose. If anything, the entire experience revealed how protected you truly are. It revealed the strength of your discernment, your resilience, your ability to remain grounded while others became consumed by manipulation and emotional warfare. That is your victory, not revenge, not watching them suffer, but becoming unrecognizable to the pain that once tried to break you. Read that again. The greatest form of justice is your continued peace. The greatest form of revenge is your refusal to carry the darkness they tried placing inside you. And the greatest proof of divine protection is the fact that after everything they orchestrated, your spirit is still rising. So keep walking forward without fear. Keep protecting your energy. Keep choosing silence over chaos. And never forget this. When people dig pits for the chosen one, they rarely realize they are building the very collapse that will eventually consume them. If this message found you at the exact moment you needed confirmation, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. And in the comments type, "I kept my hands clean." Let the right people find each other.